Hey film dorks, what's going on? Got a letter in the mail today from Trifectora Home Products. Dear Mr. Friend, we want to thank you again for participating in the Trifectora Partnership Program. We are excited to partner with online content creators as we expand our digital presence. It is vital that these partnerships do not risk alienating our internet customer base. Some of your recent videos have contained excessive amounts of profanity. This is unacceptable as it could turn off potential customers. We urge you to be more mindful as you express yourself going forward. Otherwise, it may be necessary to reassess your status with the Trifectora Partnership Program. Sincerely, Shirley R. Blitzenkrieg, Trifectora Home Products, Assistant Junior Undersecretary, Communications. Listen, guys, I'm sorry if my language has offended anybody. That was definitely never my intention, and I hope I haven't scared anyone away from our fine sponsors in Trifectora Home Products, your source for hardware, housewares, cleaning products, and office supplies. Going forward, I've devised a method by which I think I can continue to express myself in an authentic way without alienating any viewers or potential Trifectora customers. Now, with that out of the way, let's talk about some potato movies.
Is that D.W. Griffith? Sure, he's all right. He made The Birth of a Nation.
If you know anything about the history of film, then you've heard of D.W. Griffith. He's almost universally heralded as a giant of cinema. I mean, Charlie Chaplin himself called Griffith the father of us all. And while his epic The Birth of a Nation is today criticized for its racism, it's simultaneously applauded as a masterwork of cinema that has really created film as we know it. Among the innovations often credited to Griffith and Birth of a Nation specifically are close-ups, multiple camera setups, cross-cutting, panning shots. Some sources also cite Birth of a Nation as the first feature film. All in all, that's a pretty impressive resume.
I would love it if one of those was true.
To start with, our friend Wikipedia says that in 1915, the year Birth of a Nation was released, there were over 600 feature films produced. And countless others had come out since what was probably the first one, 1906's Story of the Kelly Gang. So that's one thing we can cross off the list. As for the film's supposed technical innovations, Griffith had actually used most of these same techniques in his earlier feature films. Yeah, this wasn't even his first potato feature. As well as in the hundreds of shorts he produced for the Biograph Company between 1908 and 1913. What's more, credit for their invention belongs to several other pioneering directors of the era. Edwin S. Porter with cross-cutting and pans, George Albert Smith with close-ups, and James Williamson with, well, pretty much everything. Griffith used these techniques in interesting ways for sure, but he didn't invent any of them. So why do people think that he did? By 1913, D.W. Griffith was feeling pretty stifled at Biograph. They were skeptical of releasing his features. Apparently they thought longer movies would cause eye strain. They balked at his budget requests, and they wouldn't give him on-screen credit as the director. So he quit. Then he did what any hotshot young director might have done in those days. He took out a full-page ad in the New York Dramatic Mirror, essentially an open application for any studio that would hire him. The ad calls him the producer of all great Biograph successes, revolutionizing motion picture drama and founding the modern technique of the art. Among his claimed innovations are the large or close-up figures, distant views as represented first in Ramona, the switchback, sustained suspense, the fade out, and restraint in expression. Now we've already eliminated two of these, the close-up and the switchback, which was Griffith's term for cross-cutting. Sustained suspense is a subjective experience and really hard to objectively determine. It is possible that the clip we just saw from Ramona was the first time that the fore and background had really been used artistically, but I have a hard time believing that. I mean, this wasn't the first movie that was shot outdoors, but with no evidence to back up my skepticism, I'm gonna give him this one. I couldn't find much on the history of the fade-out either, but Griffith seems to have used them indiscriminately, sometimes even in the middle of shots, so I'm not sure how praiseworthy his fade-outs really were. And that brings me to restraint in expression, or what some historians call naturalistic acting. Basically, the claim here is that Griffith and his actors had abandoned the earlier histrionic school of acting with, the big dramatic gestures, and instead opted for performances that were grounded in reality and felt very natural, hence naturalistic acting. Potato. Anyway, my point is that this ad seems to be the source for this mythos of Griffith, the father of film. It's pretty much all right here with Griffith singing his own praises and sucking his own potato. Once you become aware of it, you start to realize that this self-aggrandizing is actually the defining characteristic of Griffith's films. In his post-biograph work, Griffith emblazoned every title card with his name or his initials, or most often both.
Oh, this is a D.W. Griffith movie.
Yeah.
Oh, hey. Did you know this was a D.W. Griffith movie?
Yes.
Don't forget, this is a D.W. Griffith movie. Oh, holy potato. Dude, this is a D.W.
Griffith would also use his title cards to point out how historically accurate his movies were. Many cards incorporate footnotes citing the source that the following scene is based on, or explaining the research that supports Griffith's inclusion of certain details. But really, the icing on the cake is this card from Intolerance, which informs us that the wall they built for the movie is the same size as the historical one. Dude, I don't need you to tell me how impressive your movie is. If I'm gonna be impressed, I'm already impressed. This just pulls me out of the film, because now I'm thinking about the set design instead of the characters and plot and world of the story. Going back to Birth of a Nation, I mean, it's neat trivia and all, but it's not really helpful as an audience member to know how minutely you've replicated Ford's Theater or the South Carolina House of Representatives or... Oh my God, look at that potato. I'm so relieved to find out that that wall with the windows is authentic. I mean, what the potato? Were you replicating the curtains? It seems to me that all of this, the monogrammed title cards, the constant references to historical accuracy, the padded resume, the insistence that the set design is so impressive, really boils down to one concern. And that concern is not making a good movie, telling a good story. That concern is demanding respect for the director.
I researched the potato out of it. I built a 300-foot potato wall. I am D.W. Potato Griffith, and you will bow before my creative genius, you measly little cockroach.
When we look at the movies themselves, most of them don't seem to have been made with much care or dedication at all.
But the Union shall be preserved.
After Birth of a Nation was such a hit, Griffith had to be the guy who made epics, so he got Intolerance and Way Down East, two bloated, unfocused films that would have worked a lot better cut down to 90 minutes or so, but which had to be padded out to 2.5 hours, 3 in some cuts, because
I'm D.W. Griffith, and I make potato epics.
despite often being praised for delivering narrative filmmaking out of its infancy, Griffith's films, in fact, often lack a sense of pacing in narrative form. His biography of Abraham Lincoln, which was one of the 2 sound films Griffith made at the end of his career, seems almost like the script was written by tearing random pages out of a biography and then inventing a lot of pointless additional scenes to tie the random bits together. It's almost like listening to a toddler tell a story that he's making up as he goes along.
He was really strong, and he said, look at me, I can pick up this barrel. And then somebody said, you should give a speech about slavery is bad. And then somebody else said, surprise, you're president.
When we look at Griffith's movies not as untouchable masterpieces, but just as movies, a lot of the hype just doesn't hold up. Some of them are alright, and a few of them are actually really good, but overall, their importance and the importance of the man who made them has been wildly overblown. Look past all the exaggerations, and what you'll see is not a god among men, and not a talentless hack promoting potato movies as works of genius, but a moderately talented filmmaker who had some runaway successes in his day. And maybe that's not as impressive as the father of cinema, but it's still nothing to sneeze at. Which reminds me, wash your potato hands!
Heard that train near the harvest moon, calling my soul full of leaving soon. Howling out the window like a rabid dog. Don't you cry for me, honey, when I roll along. Knew this game when you drew your hand. I'm a whiskey train, all traveling man. Blow the whistle, baby, tell me how it feels. Chugging down the track on my driving wheel. Oh, baby.